Hello students. In previous video we have seen the introduction of log-based protocol. Log-based protocol basically ensures the isolation. And in that we have seen the concept of two types of logs, that is shared log and exclusive log. Now going into detail, we require that every transaction requests a log in an appropriate mode on the data item queue depending on the types of operation that it will be performed on queue. Which type of log we use, that depends upon the application. The transaction can proceed with the operation only after the concurrency control manager grants the log to the transaction. So basically, when user requires or user wants to request the log, to which transaction it is granted has to be decided by control manager. This control manager decides to which transaction the log has to be granted. The use of these two log modes allows multiple transactions to read a data item but limit write access to just one transaction at a time. We have already seen that shared log mode can only read the data, but exclusive log can read and write the data. So when these two logs are allowed, then multiple transaction can read the data but limited write access to just one transaction at a time, because write operation changes the database values. So only one transaction at a time can write the data, but the read operation or read function can be performed by multiple transactions also. Let A and B represents arbitrary log mode. Suppose that transaction Ti requests a log of mode A on queue, on which transaction Tj currently holds a log on mode B. That means transaction T1 is requesting the data item Q, or transaction Ti is requesting a log of mode A on data item Q. But at the same time, another transaction Tj is also holding a log on mode B. If transaction Ti can be granted a log on Q immediately, in spite of the presence of mode B log, then we say mode A is compatible with mode B. That means in spite of the item is logged by another mode, if the transaction immediately grant the log, then we can say that these two transactions or these modes are compatible to each other. Shared mode is compatible with shared mode, but not with exclusive mode. At any time, several shared mode logs can be held simultaneously on a particular data item, because shared mode can read only the data item. A subsequent exclusive mode log request has to wait until the currently held shared mode logs are released. So whenever any transaction want to write the data, it has to wait until all the shared log has been released. A transaction requests a shared log on the data item Q by executing the log sq instruction. Similarly, a transaction requests an exclusive log through the log xq instruction. A transaction can unlock a data item by unlock q instruction. To access a data item, the transaction Ti must first log that item. If that item has already been logged by another transaction in an incompatible mode, the concurrency control manager will not grant the log until all the incompatible logs held by other transactions have been released. So the logs are released only if the modes are compatible. If the modes are incompatible or the transaction are in incompatible mode, then the control manager, concurrency control manager, never grant that lock. Thus, TI is made to wait until all the incompatible locks held by other transactions have been released. So this is how various locks